So, hi everyone. Just a reminder of Zoom info. You should be muted, and if you take your cursor to the bottom of the screen, you'll see the mic icon on the left. If you want to talk, we're a small group, so we should feel free to talk. I can and ask questions. There's also a chat box, which I will have you use right now, and it'd be great if you can. It'd be great your name and your organization so other people know who's calling from where. I think I know most of you, but it'd be great to see that. Also want to let you know that you can resize your title screen. If you go up to your Zoom, you should see like a viewing options, and if you click on that and drop down, you can do split screen, and then in between you'll see the title slide. Once you hit split screen, in between the title slide and the speaker slide, you'll be able to see them side by side. There's two little small bars in the middle there. If you click and drag that to the left, you can make the people bigger and the slides smaller, or the other way around, depending on the slides. And you might want to make the people, our slides aren't super slide heavy, or aren't super text heavy. So, this is a listening session, want to hear your questions, want to encourage talking. We are also recording, and I believe, yes, we are, and we'll post it on the website. We'll send you a link. You're free to share it, and we'll send you a copy of the slides as well. Great. Just to briefly go over the agenda. We have some introductions there. Hi, Patty. You're from California Reinvestment Coalition. Looking forward to meeting you. And Jesse Torres, who's our board chair from Arroyo West. Hi. I see a lot of familiar faces who have been on many of these over the past 6 months. Hi, Tony from the Jobs Assembly Committee on Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy, the JEDI Committee. Corinne Hodges will be joining us. She is the executive director of the Association for Women's Business Centers. So nice to see people. Hi, Marissa. Great to see all of you. Our next piece is we're going to talk about federal policy. We have Ann Sullivan from Madison Services Groups, and her, what do you call it? Her questioner. Mark Quinn, who always has some good questions for Ann about what's going on in policy. So I invited him on. He's a senior advisor for Cameo. And then I'll do a little bit of updates for the state of California. I might have Tony chime in on that. And open Q&A if there's other questions or other things that we didn't cover. Feel free to ask those. And also, like I said, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question as we're going on. It's be good if you could raise your hand, or just kind of, if you undo your mic and wait a second, we can kind of chime in at the right time. So with that, we're going to move on to the federal update with Ann Sullivan from Madison Services Group, our person in DC, and she's going to talk about a whole list of things that is happening in and once Ann, I think we should maybe, Melissa, are you able to pop this into chat, and then I'll stop sharing my screen so we can just see Ann. We're going to talk about the Corona bill, the government for 2021, what's up with microloan bills, community advantage programs, and the Small Business Investment Corp. Is that right? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and take it away, Ann. Ann, you're muted. You're going to have to start over.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello. Okay. As I was saying, it's 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. After loads and loads of Zoom calls today, I have to beg your indulgence, and I have to look at my notes to focus at this point. So there's a lot going on in Washington, a lot and then not enough, if that makes any sense. So a lot in the sense that continued conversations about another relief bill, not so much as in when is there going to be a deal, is anything going to happen, what are the components, who's calling whom. There's all of that. And so at this point, rather than, in my opinion, rather than waiting through yet another set of possibilities, I'm just going to kind of tell you that the small business provisions have really not changed since they were passed in the HEROES Act in May. There's been tweaks in the Senate side of things they'd like, but basically speaking, everybody anticipates that if a deal's made, there will be a second loan allowed for small businesses to apply for PPP. There will be a loosening of some of the requirements. There will be additional expenses that you can apply toward forgiveness. So kind of correcting some of the things that trip people up in the first round. And beyond that, everything is just speculation. I mean, the Democrats have said they'll come to 2.2 trillion. The Republicans last week tried to proceed to a bill that was 500, what am I in, the billions, yeah. So, those big macro numbers, how and when they come to it, the big tripping point is also state and local funding for state and local governments. Republicans just still feel like that is not necessary, and Democrats feel strongly it is, so there's also that. But with respect to the small business proposals, they kind of stay the same and are expected to, if a bill moves, are expected to be a part of it. Funding for the government is tied to this because FY 2021 it starts October 1st. If nothing is passed, then there will be a government shutdown, which absolutely nobody wants that to happen in an election year. So the negotiating parties are the same as who's negotiating on the coronavirus bill, a relief bill, and have pretty much agreed to just a simple, what Washington calls a clean bill with not a lot of extraneous stuff in it. Just extending funding for the government probably through December. Usually it's right around Christmas when, everybody wants to leave. That's usually when they get it done. But so just look to some certainty in that regard in, the next week or so to make sure that funding continues and does not end up in a government shutdown. There has been a real emphasis in the small business committees with respect to how do we get more loans, more capital in the hands of small business. Now, that's always a topic of discussion, but it really is during COVID because the need has just really increased exponentially. And so some microloan bills have been around for a while. And I mean, Cameo was instrumental. Carolina testified. We've written thoughtful letters. I mean, we've been involved in the process. And so the House passed 2 microloan bills this week. One was, well, let me just tell you what I'll give you the numbers for what it's worth. HR 6079 and HR 6078. And here's what they did. The first one makes me really happy because I have forever been harping on the elimination of the 155th rule, that's just silly and needs to be changed. So these bills do that. It increases the intermediaries' aggregate outstanding loan limit from 67 million. It makes intermediaries with 25% of its portfolio in rural areas eligible for additional SBA grant of 5% of the total outstanding loan balance. And it expands the pool of intermediaries eligible for the lowest interest rates on loans from SBA to intermediaries from those with an average loan size to borrowers of 7,500 up to an average loan size of 10,000. So those are just some of the things it does. The whole point is to try to make the microloan program better and able to deploy as much capital as possible. The other thing that happened was that, unlike passing the House, there's first passage in committee, as most of you know, because I think most of you are advocates. But the first thing that has to happen for a bill to move is to get through a committee markup. And this week there was a committee markup in the House Small Business Committee that turns the Community Advantage Loan Program from a pilot to a permanent program. And I think that's a really big deal for this program. And there have been a lot of folks talking about the need for it. There were two amendments. One, it included disaster areas as an underserved area as it relates to the Community Advantage program. And then it also helped Congress better understand the role of a small business credit score within the CA program by requiring the SBA to report on the performance of loans based on credit score ranges. And then the second amendment was that right now the requirement in the Community Advantage program is that a minimum of 60% of the loans go to businesses in underserved markets. And this amendment ratcheted that up to 75%. So that passed the committee. It's ready for House. It's ready for floor action. And then finally, there is a micro SBIC bill, and I believe it was introduced. I'm not quite sure. It's on tap to be introduced. And we've been working behind the scenes with the House Small Business Committee staff. The SBIC program, I don't know how many of you know about Small Business Investment Company program, but it's basically gives investment opportunities for small businesses who would not normally get equity investment from regular sources. And the way that the government backs some of that investment is why it's compelling. And therefore, the requirements are, generally speaking, not as stringent on companies as might be in the market. So the committee is still saying, even with a better set of rules, they find that there's still not enough investment in small business, at least to their satisfaction. So they came up with this idea to make the requirements on SBICs less, as in the amount of capital they have to raise, the management requirements, just basically making it a little easier to become an SBIC. And they call it a micro SBIC. So it's a separate license from a regular SBIC. It's a micro SBIC, and it also asks that women and minorities are on the investment team. It's really just a good idea to come up with another vehicle for investment that doesn't currently exist. And that ought to be introduced pretty soon. The staff has said that they think later in the year there'll be a markup on it, but that's another place that I think could use some help with respect to SBA's programs.
And I have a question. Can what kind of company would take advantage of an SBIC? And that's a small business investment company, right? What kind of?
Well, the SBIC is the investment company itself.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that's the investors.
Right.
So I actually just worked with a company that's looking for SBIC funding, right? It's a minority-owned company, which doesn't really matter all that much in terms of pitching investment, but they come with a set of circumstances that other companies don't have. One, they don't have as many assets. They leased a lot of their equipment instead of owning it. So they don't have the normal set of assets that somebody might want to invest in. They in a desperation move gave away substantial amounts of their equity so that they could raise angel investment money. But in the process, that ended up really turning away investors, right? Because there wasn't enough equity. So they come with a whole set of problems, and SBICs are just a little bit more not as focused on the strict numbers and might be a little more interested in investments that other investors wouldn't be. So, I got them an audience, for example, with 2 SBICs, and, no investor would touch them previously. So I'm just saying
What kind of company are they? What do they do?
They're a lab.
A lab.
So a STEM company that has big capital investments ahead of it. So just that's an example of people that, or a lot of women also find SBICs to be a little more welcoming, to at least give them the time of day to pitch than maybe other, investors in the market would.
Yeah, great. Mark, I know you have questions.
Yeah, I do actually. Hello, Ann. Quick question. I'll start going backwards on your the SBIC, the micro SBIC piece. What are the aspects of it that make it advantageous? Is it more leverage or longer repayment term or other kind of features that make it worthwhile? Because the challenge with venture money is always that no one wants to really do the small things. No one really wants to do the risky things. And all of that is really why things, the MESBIC program way back in the past always had a challenge trying to stay, to really make themselves viable. So, what is it that they're looking to do to make this one actually work?
So the looser requirements and the repayments and all of that are relaxed on the actual formation of the SBIC, not on the company that's asking for investment, right? So
Right.
This is, Mark, if you and I decide to go look at getting a micro SBIC license, we only have to raise 25 million in capital to deploy as opposed to 175 million, for example.
Right.
It relaxes the management requirements to expand the pool of eligible fund managers. It enhances the fund manager diversity requirements and licenses. So they're trying to make sure that it's possible for women or minorities to be investors and be on the investment team. I know that's always a struggle. It's kind of chicken and egg. It also offers discounted leverage for investments in small businesses underserved by private equity or venture capital responding to the COVID pandemic. So it's also trying to ramp it up quickly.
Right. All of those sound like they would work toward the idea that you would actually get, more in SBIC types into the picture, because right now the hurdle to raise outside money is so high that it makes it really difficult for anybody that's focusing on an underserved market to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Skipping back in your comments on community advantage.
Wait, hold it, Mark. Can you hold on a second? I think Tony
Sure.
Simons has a comment on the SBIC. So before we go to community advantage.
Sure.
Tony?
Hello. So the one thing I wanted to add was a little bit going back to Heidi's question on why these new investment entities are so important. So I used to sit on the CalPERS and CalSTRS board, and this was not apparent to me until I started to sit in on more equity discussions. There's a concept in investment, whether we like it or we don't like it, that is about culture match. And part of the culture match is that this business that you give money to as an investment are going to be making decisions, and the investor won't necessarily be sitting next to them when all of those decisions get made. So there is this theory that the investor wants to find an entity that they invest in, that there's a culture match, that there's agreements about not just what they're going to do as a business, but really how the business operates. That idea is a real structural impediment for the expansion of equity investments to a broad group of business owners, women-owned, minority-owned, or even new businesses that might be trying a social enterprise or something like that. There's also an impediment that for equity investors, they can't get the larger amounts of money until they can show that they've done investments at the $1 million mark, 5 million. And so they also are being limited in their access to larger dollars from other people. And this could be foundation dollars that come in for equity, as well as any pension funds or insurers, etc. So by making it easier to become an SBIC or an entity, these investment entities, you're actually creating a method for both diversifying the businesses that are being invested in, because women are more open to invest with women, and people of color demonstrated that there is a highly likelihood of being much more open to investing in businesses that are owned by people of color. So it's a real effective way to eliminate a real structural impediment.
Yeah, I've heard, I like this saying, change the funder, change who gets funded. So it kind of goes along with that. Thanks, Tony. Anybody else on the SBIC?
So I would just say in response to that I would hope that's the case, that women lend to women or invest in women and minorities, or, I'm not sure that plays out in the marketplace. But certainly that's the goal of this legislation, is to do what you've said. But my experience has been kind of counter to some of that, I'm just going to say. But it's certainly not the outcome we'd hope.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so Ann, I'll skip back to your community advantage comments. A couple of quick ones. On the legislation that's proposed. If community advantage becomes a permanent program instead of just a pilot, then some of the aspects of the pilot restrictions, like the limited number of CA participants, is that likely to change? And then the second point is that the idea of moving the targeted percentage of a community advantage lender's portfolio from 60 to 75%. Because that's also really correlates to higher risk portfolio. But at the same time, SBA has never recognized that when you have an expectation of higher risk, that you're going to have a performance that's not going to be the same as the rest of 7A. So one of the issues that has always been that SBA simultaneously says, we want you to take more risk. And then we beat the CA lenders over the head saying, look at the bad performance of your portfolio, which is completely hypocritical to that. So adding even more of a expectation it really exacerbates the problem of, if SBA doesn't identify the expectation of performance risk, then we are then simultaneously saying, we want you to take more risk, but we want your portfolio to look just as good as our PLP lenders. So sorry to go on too much on that, but
I hear you loud and clear, and I know that, I know exactly what you're talking about. I would just say that the House committee, and it's led by, Nydia Velazquez, who is from New York and has Puerto Rico roots, I think. And, she kind of said, well, too bad. Like, we've got to be the change agents. So I know that was raised. Your point was raised, and the committee decided, well, we're just going to tell SBA to do this. And so, as you point out, there is a lot of follow-up between if the law passes and implementation, for sure.
Yeah. One other aspect to it, as a pilot, SBA can do a lot of things that as a
Right.
permanent program you can't do. And one of them is to essentially freeze the program in place and not allow additional lenders into the program, which is what they've effectively done. They are not adding new CA lenders to the program as it currently is set up. We can add credit unions and lenders all across the country anytime they want to get into the program. It's never a problem. SBA, ironically, is going out there and beating the bushes on a district office level, beating the bushes to try to get more lenders into the 7A program. Simultaneously, we're saying we don't want any more CA lenders because of the risk. So if you make the program permanent, does the expectation change that we can then expand CA lending to a lot more CDFIs? Micro lenders and CDCs are still in the program and can, are not as big a pool, but the CDFI industry has a lot of potential of adding more CA lenders into it. But SBA is really has really closed the door on getting new players in. So what's your sense of that?
The entire micro lending community, or most of them that I know, have been pressing for this. So they feel that if you made it permanent, you would do exactly what you're talking about, which is adding a lot more folks to the portfolio. And so I don't have an opinion about whether or not that will actually happen, because, there are people that are much more skilled than I am at understanding that. But I do know that the entire community seems to be united in thinking that this would be the outcome.
Yeah, that's good. And one last piece on community advantage is that right now you have to be an existing either a CDFI or an SBA microlender or a CDC.
Right.
But there's a number and a number of Cameo members who are micro lenders that
Did Mark freeze, or is that me?
He froze for
Okay.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I want to just make sure it wasn't me. Mark, you froze. If you can hear us, shut off your video. Mark is up in Napa, and sometimes I've stayed there. Sometimes the internet isn't as good as it should be. He's not in the city proper, we'll let him finish his comment after if he unfreezes there. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, he dropped. Does anybody have any questions for Ann on either appropriations for next year? So just to recap, it looks like we're gonna find out hopefully next week that appropriations will be pretty much what they were, at least continuing the same funding. Does anybody have any questions? I would think that you might have a question. Anybody have a question on appropriations? I'll ask it if no one else, because I know I'll ask the question. What about all the programs that members are funded by? So are they going to continue to be funded? Like, let's say, I see a few SBDCs on here. I see some CDFIs on here.
Yeah. So the rule of thumb is that if you were funded this year and the program wasn't eliminated, that it will continue to be funded, right? The folks that are really at risk are if a program expired and is caught in between this and the next fiscal year.
Okay.
So SBDCs, SBA resource partners, those programs have continued to be funded every year. I don't think the funding's in danger, but I think grant-wise, it can kind of get all messed up with SBA's grant process. And so that really is a bit dependent on what the grant process, like what the normal process is. This generally just pushes everything back. That's just kind of a general statement. So that's why folks are not very happy about continuing resolutions. They'd much rather that the new program start on October 1st.
Great. So I just want to bring that up so everybody, I know there's some people here who are funded. And
sometimes, by the way, sometimes the Congress can't quite get their act together in time to pass something by October 1st. So then they do little tiny, almost little tiny extensions for a day or two until they get it worked out. But I just think that there's very little chance that the government will not be funded on a continuing basis.
Yeah. Yeah. People have more fish to fry, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm saying, let's not sweat that. You know, I wouldn't.
Sure. Great. Does anybody else have any questions for Ann on federal stuff and something we didn't cover that you might know about?
I was just wondering on these bills, is it possible to see any of these preliminary bills? You're saying like HR 6079, is it available to the public or only when it's?
Yeah. So congress.gov is where you find it.
Okay.
And you just type in the numbers. The other place to find the bills are if you go to the House Small Business Committee. And you'll see there that it's got hearings, markups, bills introduced. You know, you can also track it that way. And all the bills that I was talking about have HRs in front of it. So that means House of Representatives. So that means it's the House Committee.
Okay. And you're saying they're always available. The preliminary versions are always available.
Well, one passed the committee, right? And the other two passed the House. So once the bill has been introduced, that's when it's public. And it usually takes about 2 days to make it into congress.gov. And then it's public from then on.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Ann? Great. Well, I'm going to share my screen. And before I do, I want to say thank you to Tony Simons for letting me unwittingly steal a couple of her slides. Imitation is the best form of flattery or something like that, right? If anybody on this call doesn't know, Tony does have a monthly small business roundtable that deals with state stuff where we talk about legislation and other things that are happening in the state that Cameo attends, other advocates attend, and some practitioners as well. So if anybody's interested, you can email me and I'll put you in touch. We had, if anybody doesn't know, the governor has set out a blueprint for reopening. It's a new kind of tiered system. It's made to be simple. I'm just gonna mute somebody. It's made to be simple. There's 4 tiers. Purple has the most restrictions. Tier 1 has the fewest. This is restrictions on reopening. Melissa's gonna go ahead and pop the link into chat for me. It's people had confusion on where they were, what to do. You can actually look up your county and see what tier you're at and what restrictions you have to abide by. They also issued updated industry guidance. I looked at it for one of the industries to tell you, like for example, tier 4 retail. I believe if you go down to retail, you can have 25% of your normal occupancy in your store. So if your occupancy is 10, you can have, I don't know if that would be 2 or 3 people because you can't really have 2.5 people. But so one customer at a time, I guess, in addition to yourself. So it's actually really easy to read. I don't know if everybody, I'm guessing everybody on this call has been looking at these documents that are just dense as can be with restrictions and trying to tease out what information applies and what information doesn't. This website, the guidance, what restrictions are under each tier, all those things that are on there. It's a lot easier to manage. So I want to make sure that everybody had that information. And also there's a link to an updated stay-at-home order on there as well. Tony, do you want to add anything to that? Put you on the spot?
Well, the only thing I would say is that the other unique piece in this is that your county has to stay in your color band for 21 days.
Ah.
And part of that is so that businesses and customers don't feel like the ground is literally changing under their feet. It also, you go from tier to tier based on 2 specific indicators. And so by checking the website, you can easily see where these 2 numbers are. You can see how long your county has been in purple and whether it's heading to red. I think red's the next color. So the idea is to go down from 58 different counties. Now we have 4 tiers. All counties fit within the 4. Counties stay within the color for 21 days, although it's a little faster right now because there is some credits from prior months. And the whole way is designed to create more certainty. However, one must always check with the county because your county does have the authority to come in with slightly more restrictive rules. And that's all I got.
Awesome, thank you. So has everybody heard of this, or is this new to everybody? New, not new? Make sure that your business owners know about it, your clients, you, if you're going to open your place. Excellent. Let's see.
Heidi, the only other thing I would say is that if you are doing business plans for the next year, you know, these occupancies and these limitations probably need to be reflected in your business plan, as well as your business's, you know, just general operations. But if you think about it, you probably would not want to go into a lender and talk about the scale of, you know, customers coming in that you can't also show that you've included these new guidelines. So it might be a number of documents that at least need to have a footnote or something.
This is why I have Tony around. She always has great insight. Exactly. That's a good point. I hadn't gone there, so thank you. Great. Some other things going on in the state. I am really excited to say, I think, I'm not 100% sure. We haven't looked at them yet, but I've seen a couple of preliminary pieces that have come out. Is the DBO regulations for SB 1235 have been released. They were released last Friday. I haven't read them yet. Haven't had time, but comments are due at the end of October. Cameo is working with the Responsible Business Lending Coalition for a comment letter, and we'll probably be asking either for you to sign on to it, or you can also, you know, be providing that comment letter if you want to do your own comments, and you can tailor it to yourself. And just a reminder, what SB 1235 is that in 2018, we worked with many of you on the calls. We were really excited to promote truth in lending for small businesses. There are no lending restrictions for small business lending, for commercial lending in the country I should say there were none until SB 1235. So that was really exciting. And, you know, we've talked a lot over the years about the perils of online lending and the perils of, not all online lenders are bad, but, you know, lenders not being transparent, it being really easy to get cash from loanme.com and even PayPal and Square. Some of those products may not be, you know, it depends on the situation whether or not it's good for the business. But you know, there's a whole host of lenders out there that have been taking advantages of small businesses. I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole because I can talk about that for a long time. So we passed a bill with basically asked for transparency in truth and lend for small business lending. So that is really exciting that the regulations have come out. At a first glance, a lot of our recommendations, it seems like they have been taken. You know, we have to comb through the whole, I think they're pretty long and pretty technical, but we're combing through the regulations as a team. And Louis Caddage-Peck, who is from Lending Club and actually sits on the Cameo board, is part of that team, and he really knows the regulation piece and all the details really well. I have 100% faith that he's going to do a good analysis for us, and we'll be working with him for our comment letter and the rest of the Responsible Business Lending Coalition. So if you'll be hearing from me about that as time goes on in the next couple of weeks. And I said, as if you recall that I said there were no small business lending regulations. SB 1235 also spurred two recent pieces. New York passed an SB 1235 that was actually pretty strong, which we were very excited about. The Responsible Business Lending Coalition worked on that as well, which actually took our suggestions and took our regulations and actually put them into law. They didn't, at the time we passed 1235 because it was so new and innovative, we didn't have the political will, would say, to actually pass the regulations. There was some political backstory. It was pretty dramatic. If at our next Cameo in-person meeting, if you give me enough wine, I'll tell you about it. So we'll leave it for that. But New York passed a good bill based on all the suggestions. Really excited for that, as well as Nadia Velasquez of the House Small Business Committee. They also had a hearing. And Mark, did they introduce the bill, Ann, or they just had the hearing? Correct me. I know she has a bill.
Sorry, on what?
The truth in lending.
Yeah, that was introduced.
That was introduced, yes.
Yeah.
So that was introduced, and then they had a hearing. I know that Opportunity Funds CEO Lou Suratria spoke at. So that is really exciting news for us. We're really excited, and we really thank all of you who and all your organizations who worked hard on that. So thank you. There's a couple of new programs that are going to be available that passed in the budget this year. I think we've talked about this, but just wanted to go over them briefly just to make sure you understand that these exist. One is the Social Entrepreneurs for Economic Development. That's a $10 million initiative underneath the California Workforce Development Board. And it's mainly based to serve economically disadvantaged groups who face significant barriers to employment, including but not limited to individuals with limited English proficiency. So we will be, as soon as we have more information about how that program is going to work, we will make sure that it is in your hands. So look out for that. And then the Small Business Finance Center at the iBank, there's $100 million in loan guarantees and $25 million that are supporting the CDFIs and the mission-based lenders so that they can make loans. We've talked about this, I know, before. We're really excited that that passed in the budget. And then there is also the iBank's Disaster Loan Guarantee Program that's available for not quite micro businesses, but available to micro businesses up to businesses with 750 employees with a maximum guarantee of $1 million. And eligible applicants are small businesses that have been negatively impacted by any kind of disaster, whether it be the COVID or whether it be fires. I know we're going to have the SBA disaster loan program is probably going to be coming on tap pretty shortly here, because of all the California fires, which I hope, I should have started out saying, I hope everybody is and their people are safe. Does anybody have any questions on comments on anything, on any of these items? Oop. I just wanted to mention briefly the California Rebuild Fund, which is really exciting. If you haven't heard about it, it's a really exciting fund. It's the idea is that the goal is to support the smallest businesses with flexible, affordable loans if the business has 50 employers or fewer, through the participating lenders. This program is really exciting. It's not a government program. Government is participating in the program. The iBank has put up $25 million for state loan guarantee, but Calvert Impact Partners, Calvert Impact Capital has been gathering the fund. There's lawyers who are putting in pro bono work on developing the fund. There's nonprofit leaders across the state and nonprofit lenders who have put their thought and are participating in trying to get the fund up and running. There's a tech company who is working with us. I think there is a link, if we could put it on the chat, into the chat. You can find more about it, see who all the partners are and things like that. Find a little bit more about the program. This is a little bit more of a shameless plug for our Train the Trainer on Thursday, October 1 at 10 o'clock. We'll tell you more detail about the program and how you can get your businesses and your clients to access the fund. But it's a really exciting program. We're very excited for it. The October one is a Train the Trainer. It's for all staff, all your consultants, if you're working at an SBDC or any entrepreneurial training program. It's for all lenders. It's for all the service providers and their staff. We want to cast a wide as net as possible to get as much out there to the small businesses as possible. It's not, we don't have a launch date, so that's why this is just Train the Trainer. We expect it to be sometime early October. People are working fast and furiously behind the scenes to pull it together. And of course, we will, on October 1st, we'll be announcing when those small business majorities, one of our partners in this, and Cameo's role is to work on the Train the Trainer. Small business majority is going to be spearheading the outreach to small businesses. We will make sure that you all have the resources you need to make sure that your small businesses know how to apply and can get access to the funds. So this is kind of great news. It's something we've, I know a lot of people have been thinking about since early March when this started to happen. I'm going to leave it there. Let's see. And does anybody have any clarifying questions on that?
I had a question. Is that through the iBank or is it through?
It's not through the iBank. They're going to apply through, small businesses are going to apply through a portal and be matched with a lender.
So through the state
It's
of
not
California?
it's not, no, it's not going to be a state. They're
It's
providing a loan, yeah, it's public, private, a nonprofit partnership. Yeah, it's not, the government is putting up 25 million in a loan guarantee for the loans. But it's not through the iBank. And you can find out more about it on October 1st.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Wait,
on how to apply it. So I've heard it's going to be an easy application. I've heard it's going to be fairly easy. I don't know if it's an easy application. I'm sure you need, you'll know what the clients need to apply. You'll know all that kind of stuff on October 1st. There'll be more information. This really was rapidly put together. So everybody's trying to dot the I's and cross the T's. They're still working on the back end of it as we speak. So like 2 weeks from now or from yesterday, we'll have a lot more information.
okay.
Yeah, great. Any other questions? Carolina, I think you got on the call. Do you want to say anything about it?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody. Sorry, it's been crazy days, but only that I think you covered pretty much everything, only that we are very excited to be able to connect, as we've been saying, to help small businesses through this pandemic and all the crisis that has come after everything that has happened. We all need to come together. So this is really good to see so many partners coming together to put something with our small businesses, the ones that are very affected, in mind. So we are looking forward to help CDFI. This really, the goal is to help CDFIs find more liquidity to deploy more funds. So we are really happy to be able to bring our network of providers to these initiatives so we could really help their businesses. We can't wait to have it up and running, and there is a lot of work beforehand. So happy to, I think happy to just have that conversation in this train the trainer before the actual product is out. But yeah. So that any thoughts on that, you could definitely contact us, but we're trying to put everything ready for that October 1st meeting to have more answers for all of you.
Great. Thanks, Carolina. I'm just going to tell you about a couple of things besides the Train the Trainer. Next week on Thursday at 11 a.m., Entrepreneurship Advantage, our LA Collaborative, is holding a virtual meetup, and the topic is going to be supporting women entrepreneurs in a female recession. So if you're in the LA area and want to join the collaborative and see what it's all about, and we can participate in this discussion, Melissa, I think, will have put the link into, yep, she did, into chat. So that's great. And as I mentioned, October 1 is a Train the Trainer, and we have a resource page. So I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to, I mean, anybody, open it up for questions, comments, issues that you're hearing in the field that you might want Cameo to address. We have 3 minutes left, or I'll stay as long as anybody wants to talk.
Has anybody organized all the different loan products that are available, like from the SBA, the USDA, the state, and these new programs you're putting together? Do you know of a resource that is kind of organized them?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by organized.
Well, at least
I think I don't know if you're talking about like a resource page with all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fairly certain our COVID resource page has an access to capital piece. So you could try there. I mean, if a business owner goes into a CDFI and asks for a loan, they might not be asking for, like, the micro loan. It happens on the back end and is how, like, the lender gets funded. They might not know that they're going, they're going to go into a CDFI or a micro lender and say, hey, here's my business plan, and the micro lender is going to say, I can make this loan to you at this with this product. So it's kind of a little bit impossible to kind of keep track of all the different products that each of the different lenders offer. So this is more some of the programs that we're mentioning, the USDA products and things like that are for how the capital gets to the lender. But we did, so that stuff we have on our website.
Yeah, I also, it's very hard to actually have an updated running of what programs are out there, because there is a lot of products coming out. I know Jesse's in the call, and he put together also another website with a lot of resources. Jesse, I don't know if you want to talk about it or put it in the chat, but there is definitely an opportunity to go to our resource page, which is in the chat, and there is also at the national level other one for the ASBDCs and the AWBCs try to put one together at the federal level, but completely honest, it's really hard to find one that is fully updated, because it does change and modifies very frequently.
And a lot of the grant programs that come out, they go up and they fill their fill up. And Jesse just updated his COVID page, so that's awesome. Great. So Bill, if you're looking for resource, there's your resource right there.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Jesse just popped into chat. Great. Anybody else?
Just updated.
Great. Well, everybody, thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us for an hour or so. Great to see you. Be safe. Hope everybody's air clears up sooner rather than later. Thank you to Ann Sullivan, as always, who's so generous with her time, and brings us the latest and greatest from, or not greatest, but the latest from DC. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Oh, yes.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good weekend. Thanks. See you. Bye.